This is Freedom Isn't Free. I am Brandon Gentili, and my guest today is Diana Gipe and Terry Judge. Diana is the Director of Operations at CORE, and Terry is the CEO and the founder and the owner, correct? And they are experts in the area of creating cash flow for property investors, operators, developers, and financial advisors, helping you take advantage of the new tax laws when it comes to maximizing your depreciation. If you are a property owner, this message is for you. CORE Solutions Group is a 12-year-old engineering firm specializing in cost segregation studies, disposition of assets, property tax, property appraisal services, energy efficiency incentives, research tax credits, and other cost recovery services. They're on a mission to help their clients increase cash flow, improve asset value, and accelerate growth. They offer specialty tax incentives and cost recovery solutions in three major categories: commercial properties, businesses, and energy smart buildings. Some of the people they serve: tax professionals, real estate investors and professionals, innovative businesses, build and design professionals. And they have saved their clients over $1 billion and still counting. And then a few people they have helped: Marriott, which I'm sure everyone knows, ROCO Real Estate, which is a massive real estate firm here in Michigan, Thomasville Furniture, Caterpillar, and Duro-Last. Diana and Terry, welcome to Freedom Isn't Free. Good to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. That was a mouthful. That's a big intro.
That's a good intro. We're done.
You might have to carry the rest of it because I might pass out. So I might pass out. But no, it's great having you guys here. Anyone who's watching who's a business owner, real estate investor, obviously a number of the people that fit the criteria we just mentioned already, take some time, set that aside, and just, listen to not only this, but you guys have other content out there on the internet that you guys have put out there. That's how I think I found you, Terry, initially a few years ago. Diana, I've known you for about 7 years now, but you guys are constantly putting out content and putting it out there because, like we said, I mean, most people, business owners, real estate investors, commercial, whatever, it doesn't matter, big or small, most people just don't know a ton about cost segregation and depreciation and the tax incentives, really the tax code, which is really designed for you. And it's not really against you if you know how to look at it. So we'll kind of just dive right in here and kind of explain, I guess, where your stories a little bit, how you guys kind of started, how you guys got together, and cost segregation, just kind of how that all kind of flows together.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much. I think I can just start out by saying that I was one that had no idea what cost seg was either. I come from, the residential side of mortgages, and I was, when I moved back here about 10 years ago, I started there in mortgages and, real estate. And about 7 years ago, I actually found Terry, and it started out as just, helping him run the business, not knowing much about what the business was, entailed. I knew that our clients had, CPAs, they were financial planners, property owners. Commercial real estate was, our main focus. So I knew the basics, but cost seg was unfamiliar to me. I didn't know what that was. And now, coming alongside Terry for 7 years, I can see the huge benefit that it's yielded, to our clients. And many of them in the same boat as me, when I talk to them, the initial comment has always been, yeah, we own a building, we already depreciated, our CPA handles that. And then, once we get into what cost segregation really is and the fact that it's a study that has to be done by, or it's recommended to be done by a third party company, an engineering firm like CORE, it's something that, helps them quickly utilize, fast depreciation on their building. It's something that now I just think every property owner should know about. Our partners are the CPAs. We do, we help our clients hand in hand. So, Terry can kind of take it from there, and the basics of what cost seg is. I guess we can start there and go from there.
It's been 7 years. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Time flies. Yeah, we've been in business now for 15 years. We've actually done $1.5 billion, and we did over 100 million just in the pandemic. I mean, so in helping our clients, because interest rates are still low, our clients were still buying buildings. A lot of them put the brakes on, but a lot of them just had deals in the pipeline that kept going, and they needed this strategy. But for your listeners, essentially, cost seg, there's two pathways in the tax code. There's the straight line method, which you're going to write off your building over, if it's an apartment, 27.5 years. If it's an office or commercial building, it's 39 years. And then the second pathway in the tax code is under this advanced depreciation method called cost segregation, which is kind of very, it's a crazy word, cost segregation. We should probably change that name.
Right.
But essentially, it's a legal way to write off your properties much faster than the normal county method, where you're taking this upfront depreciation in the short term, which is creating time value of money. So $1 today is worth more than $1 down the road. So instead of, why would you wait 27 and a half years? Why would you let the IRS hold on to that money when you could get it in today's dollars and use it to offset taxable income and help grow your empire? And it's a strategy, like Diana said, it's often missed, it's often underutilized. And our mission as a firm is just to educate. I mean, we do a ton of pro bono work. We have the ability to run a no-cost savings analysis on any property, just to let the property owner say, okay, here's the pros and the cons. And there really isn't many cons. So, cost segregation has gone through many variations. It keeps getting better, and hopefully it'll continue with the new, we'll see how everything plays out with.
Yeah.
We sit here today that we got the runoffs in Georgia.
Yeah.
Who's going to hold the power in Congress? It's a little scary about what's going on. But we'll see how it all plays out. There's a lot of rich Democrats that love cost segregation. There's a lot of rich Republicans that like cost segregation. It's survived since 1969. It's been in the code since 1969. Wow. It went away in the tax reform in '86, came back in the early '90s. And when it came back, a lot of people didn't know it came back. And therefore, so many small and medium-sized investors they weren't taking advantage of it because they didn't know any better and CPAs weren't promoting it. And it's still like that today, except not as severe. I mean, it's become pretty much mainstream. But we've been doing this for 15 years, so we're starting to see more and more investors, understand this, build it into their portfolios, and leverage it, which is great. But we also see, new investors coming in that want to get into this game, get out of the W-2 world, and we're finding that they're like, what? What is this? What do you mean I can take this upfront depreciation and offset? So it is the ninth wonder or eighth wonder of the world. You're the eighth. So we're just happy to be here, man, and we love to share the message. CORE does. We've kind of grown our service offering, so we can really help. We bring a lot of value, I think, to the table through our services, and we love being on shows like yours just to keep getting the word out. Yeah,
no, absolutely, and again, commend you guys for doing that, because again, like I said already, that's how I've seen you guys putting out there a lot, and it's truly is. I love that you said you're an education company, because that's really what it's all about in the end, and helping businesses and business owners and investors or whoever may be in a position to take advantage of what you're doing. But there's, like you said, it's a little known, so you have to, it's not like you're a McDonald's on the corner where it's like everyone knows McDonald's and you drive by one every mile. It's like you have to do your job to get it out there, because very few people know about it. We were talking off air. I mean, a lot of CPAs, like we were saying, smaller firms, medium-sized firms, they don't even know. I've had experiences myself where CPAs didn't know what it was, and having to kind of hey, and so I think it's huge what you guys are doing. I'm going to go back really quick to the IRS, and you mentioned that it was in, then it was out, and it's back. I've always heard that it's mandated, or it's technically required to do cost segregation when you're doing. I don't know if it's depreciation or making sure you're doing that, but technically you have to be doing it. I know a lot of people don't, and the IRS might be they have so many other problems they kind of deal with. But technically in the code, I've heard, I haven't seen myself, but I've always heard that it was actually required by the IRS to have it done. Is that true?
So you can still elect not to do it. I mean, it's an option. It's not mandated that you have to do a cost seg, but I will tell you that now the IRS has, they do recommend that they actually prefer this method now versus the straight line method. So this is not something they look upon as aggressive or it's going to cause an audit. That's probably one of the biggest concerns, biggest objections we get from our clients. Is this going to trigger an audit? And the answer to that is, as long as it's done correctly, and you hire a respectable engineering firm that understands all the components of cost segregation, the chances of it being triggered as an audit are very, very low. You don't have to amend returns to go back let's say you have a client or one of our clients owns a building for 5 years, and they say, can I do a cost seg? I've owned my building for 5 years. How does that work? And yes, we can go back in time. The IRS lets us go back to literally 1987 legally, but we don't go back that far anymore. And we'll do a look back study, and you get a one-time automatic consent by the IRS where you can take that missed depreciation from the date you bought it, and it carries forward to the current tax year, and you can use all that missed depreciation in let's just call it in the year 2020, and then that has a 20-year carry forward. And without amending returns, that's huge for people that have owned buildings, never took advantage of cost seg, and we can go back in time and do it for them where they don't miss out. They can collect all that missed depreciation. Because we look at it like if you're not taking advantage of cost seg, you are not maximizing the tax code, and you're leaving a lot of money on the table. Absolutely. The only reason why you wouldn't do a cost seg study is that if you're going to flip the building, hold time is about 3 to 5 years. And we recommend our clients, if you're going to hold the building for at least 3 to 5 years, and the building is somewhat profitable, because of the tenants and the lease, whether it's owner occupied or you got somebody leasing, that building is kicking off cash. You're going to pay ordinary income tax, and it doesn't make business sense not to do the cost seg study if, in fact, you're going to hold the building where you can maximize time value of money. Because if you flip the building, there's something called recapture. And IRS is going to want some of that depreciation back. As soon as you sell the building, you can kind of get upside down. So we don't. That's the only time. Or if the building's sitting vacant, it's not profitable. Those are the only 2 reasons why you would not want to do a cost seg study. Just for your listeners to understand, if you're going to buy this investment property longer term, and you're going to have tenants in there, which that's the idea, right?
Right.
And then you take advantage of cost segregation, so you get the depreciation, then you get the appreciation on the asset, and hopefully you're mitigating all of your tax liabilities down to 0 with a 20-year carry forward for your investment.
He called me this morning. He's like, I was sitting down with my CPA, and we're looking at, there's capital gains. We're looking at our tax planning for things upcoming this year. And he's like, I had this office building 4 years ago. Should I cost like that? I mean, I never did it, will that help? And I'm like, yeah, let's look at numbers. And, it's going to save him with 100% bonus depreciation that first year. And he came out to like $250,000. I'm like, why not? He assumed initially they thought they were going to sell that property, like Terry was saying, but he started thinking about it, looking at their numbers. He's like, I almost forgot that I have this office building that I've never even done a cost seg on. And now utilizing that and creating, doing a study there is going to help him on his numbers, overall with his tax planning this year. So,
wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is super cool. There was 2 things I want to touch on really quick there. One was the, bonus depreciation obviously gets talked about a lot now. And there's the talk of, if Biden wins, if Trump wins or if Trump's in, then it wouldn't be, I'm sure he would keep the 1031, right? Well, Biden administration, they're talking about not having it in there. And, maybe touch on that a little bit. I believe cost segregation, obviously depreciation, bonus depreciation, all that would really play into that, because you touched on, selling a building and having to recapture that. You could do a 1031, but say that wasn't available. I feel like, again, it would be all the more important to talk to someone like you.
As long as, no one knows how this is going to shake out.
Right.
I've read it where he wants to eliminate 1031, which would be terrible for the commercial real estate industry, because nobody would want to sell their buildings. They're just going to hold on to their buildings. We don't think cost segregation has been around since, like I said, the late 60s. My opinion is it's going to stay. It's going to survive, but nobody really knows the shakeout. And bonus depreciation is still going to get. I think I read Biden's going to allow it to. It automatically winds down in 2023, so that'll be left alone for the next couple of years. And they have so much on their plate, and we'll see how everything shakes out. To get this. What we do see is the energy incentives, because, if Biden, the Democrats, they're pro-green, pro-renewable energy, we've been in this game, we've been in that game for a long time. Probably over 20 years I've been in the energy sector. And we do two very big federal programs right now for our clients that revolve around energy efficiency. We think those will be enhanced. So there's always going to be something. The IRS and the government's always promoting something to stimulate whatever they want to, promote and grow the economy with. So, we think there's going to be new services that, we'll be able to offer our clients, and we'll just see how it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, we don't know, man. It's kind of the unknown. Well, today's a big day. We'll see how things shake out, and hopefully we hold the Senate. And so it's a balance of power.
Yeah.
I just think that's going to be really good for the country, but we don't know. I mean, we'll see.
Yep. No, absolutely.
A little concerned.
Yeah. I think as everyone is probably. I really am. And the funny part is both sides are. That's the funny thing. It's probably one of the few times where both sides feel like if the other side wins, it's the end of the world. Or maybe not. It's probably always feel like that. But so circling back to one thing really quick, you touch on green energy, which I do want to talk about quick, because I think you're, long-term trajectory, let's be real here. Whether Trump is the president for the next 8 years or 12, doesn't even matter. If you had a king for the next decade, at some point, obviously green, renewable energy, all that will be the future. Just like I believe, in my opinion, like blockchain, all
it's
that.
Happening. It's happening right now.
Exactly. It's all going to happen more and more. Yeah. So before we get to that, eliminating taxes by cost segregation, you touch on that briefly, which again, I think is one of those things where most people don't realize. They just think, oh, if I get this asset and it cash flows, well, great. Now I win. Well, like you said already, you're paying ordinary income taxes. You're paying taxes on that still, that passive income or that cash flow. And there's ways to, structure that. But in general, you are. And the benefit of what you guys are doing is really when you hear a Robert Kiyosaki or a Donald Trump, oh, I pay no income tax, or I pay no taxes or whatever. Right. That's because he doesn't make ordinary income. He's cost segging things. He's depreciating things. He's not making it like a traditional person. It's all available for everybody. Everyone can do it. Just
I tried to explain that to all my friends when he came out and said that. I'm like, well, no, yes. But listen to me. And they were just like, phew. They're like, not understanding it. So I get it. Yeah. Yes.
Well, yeah. If you guys could touch on that a little bit, and just like, again, even if it's a person that has a couple single family properties or 10 properties, or maybe they have a couple apartment complexes, or it's a business owner, some of those people, probably a lot of those people, are still paying taxes they don't have to be paying because they're not using your services. You can kind of elaborate on that just a little bit and kind of how that works.
So, just kind of give your listeners something to chew on. People say, well, how much cash are we talking about? And this is something powerful if they even want to write this down. So first of all, probably we like buildings we like at least $500,000 in purchase price or construction costs at the minimum for economical, let's say that, whatever makes sense from a financial standpoint. They have to pay our fees. We want to make sure that they're getting at least a 10-to-1 return on the outcome. So we're looking for about $500,000. So if somebody might have a block of residential homes, we're looking at least about $500,000, or we can package these up. Doing one single family home, it doesn't make sense for us because the benefit is so small. But when people say, well, show me the money, and I'll just say this to you and your listeners, for every $1 million in construction or purchase price, a cost segregation study will generate about $200,000 to $250,000 in additional depreciation that they can take immediately. So for every $1 million, generates about $200,000 to $250,000 in kind of new depreciation that they can take advantage of. Okay, so that's kind of it kind of gives you an idea. So if you got a $5 million asset, you can just do the math. I mean, and bonus depreciation kicked in September 27th of 2017 under the CARES Act, and that just allows, instead of in the normal cost seg world, we're writing off assets, we're plucking out assets from a 39-year life, let's say, or 27.5-year life, and we're putting these assets, and there's hundreds of components in the building that now qualify for faster write-off, but we're putting them into shorter buckets. Normally 5 years is all the interior, and then your exterior is normally classified as a 15-year asset. Okay, so now in comes bonus depreciation. People say, what the heck is bonus depreciation? And all that means is that your 15-year property and your 5-year property now gets compressed into year one. And so if you buy $1 million building, you got to put $250,000 down. You're literally, because of the first year depreciation numbers, you're literally getting that right back. You can almost, it's kind of, you're writing off your down payment, so to speak, on the building. You're basically, the IRS is just giving you another $250,000 back in the form of depreciation. And that's very, very powerful when you're syndicating or when you've got investors coming into the deal, because they're going to get a piece of that on their K1s. So hopefully, I just wanted to, maybe you have a follow-up question. I don't want to go too deep into the weeds, but bonus depreciation is in effect for the next few years. And many people that are buying buildings today can take full advantage of first year 100% bonus depreciation. And the only way you can really take advantage of it is you have to have a cost segregation study done. You mentioned in the beginning, like you have to, in some cases, it really is mandatory, because if you don't do it, I don't think you're being a savvy investor. You're leaving a huge piece on the table. And why would you do that? Right? And we consult. Not everybody's in the right position. There's, like I said, there's a couple different variables. But one of the things that we do, Diana does, is we really hold someone's hand through this process to make sure they understand how this is going to impact them. We talk to their CPA. We're not CPA, so we don't cross we don't cross that line as far as giving advice in that arena. But we can certainly help tee it up and get it to the point where we talk to their CPA and we're going to be like, okay, these are the numbers. Here's how it's going to be implemented. This is going to they can use it for the next 20 years. And, then they say, oh, wow, why wouldn't we do this? Right. So yeah, that's kind of where it's,
yeah.
Hopefully the question helps the listeners,
that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And you touch on something that was the follow-up question that I had right there was, I'm sure people will be wondering, hey, Terry, Diana, I have a CPA. Yeah, how does that work? Like, are they contacting you, or am I contacting you guys and hooking you guys up together? How does that process kind of work with my CPA?
Want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times either the client will, put us in touch with their CPA or vice versa. I don't think there's a rhyme or reason. We work together with them. So we have engineers that, once we get engaged on the study, they go out to do the site visit, do their final reports, and then that final report gets sent to the CPA, and we're on a call doing a wrap-up call, making sure all the numbers jive from, and everything looks good, and it's, the final approval is by the CPA and the client. And they're making sure that everything is approved, through our engineers. And then, so we work together with them, whether that's us contacting your CPA directly or you contacting them. Really, we just like to get on the phone, probably all three, to just have that initial conversation. Because like you said, some CPAs will know automatically what it is. And then I've been in scenarios where, the client will tell me, oh, my CPA is taking care of this, no big deal, actually don't need cost segs. And then 2 years later, I get an email from the CPA say, hey, I need a cost seg for my client. And it's that very client who thought that their CPA was already doing this for them.
Yeah, so CPAs, technically, they really are not supposed to, or really they don't have the tools, because there's a lot of different software that we use. We have to understand blueprints and construction and the way buildings, there's over 300 IRS revenue rulings and memorandums that support cost seg. So if you do it wrong, the IRS, if you ever do get audited, will disallow the whole thing, the whole report. So it's very important. One thing that, I will say, it's very important on who you choose, whether it's us or another cost seg firm. It's important to have this done correctly. Make sure all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. But like Diana said, it's probably 50%, 50-50 that the CPAs will approach us and say, hey, I got this client just bought a building. The other 50%, the client will reach out to us and say, hey, I just bought this building.
Right.
Talk to my CPA. Right. It comes in both ways. We don't care. I mean, we work with a ton of CPAs around the country, and we work with, most of the time, we don't even meet that CPA until the end of the project. We do, like Diana said, we do a kickoff call in the beginning, which we do a lot of due diligence up front. We don't charge for that. We want to make sure this is the right thing for the client. And then when we're about done, we invite the CPA to come onto the call, look at our work, make sure all the numbers are correct based on their depreciation schedules, and then we finalize the report, and it's beautiful. It's a clean from start to finish. There's no issues. I mean, most of the time there's zero issues because we just take our time and we walk through the process. And at the end of the day, if the IRS ever questioned our studies, we're just so, we stay strict. We're very strict by the book. And there was something published in 2004 called the IRS Technique and Guidelines, which is kind of our business Bible. They've actually published something that we follow to the T. That way we can be very aggressive, but not, we're not going to get our clients in any type of an issue, because our reports are 100 pages long and we break out every single cost inside that building, even the electrical, down to the electrical outlets behind the walls. And there's hundreds and hundreds of components that will be in our report that we're breaking out of long-term property into short-term property. And that's how you legally can take advantage of this study. That's just how. So we have an audit trail. We provide 100% audit defense in our work papers, just in case the IRS ever came knocking. We are completely 100% will defend anything that we do, because it's according to the IRS. We're not making this stuff up because we're fancy, we're just kind of, it's just, let's just put this component in this bucket. Right. You just hope and pray we don't.
Exactly.
In our reports, we actually cross-reference the case laws and the memorandums and why things go into what bucket. And it gives everybody a sense of, relief that, okay, the higher core, then everything's going to be done according to IRS specs, which is
it'd be like writing a book and you're citing your references, and doing that, keeping on
exactly. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, that's exactly what it made me think of. That's beautiful. Where you touched on this too. I'm going to go back to green energy here in a second, 'cause I think that's super interesting. But where do you guys operate? I think, again, you guys are based in Michigan, but where do you guys operate?
Where our offices?
Yeah, Birmingham.
In Birmingham, yeah. And we do cost segs though all over the country, and then we have several engineers. We have an engineer in Florida that travels, mainly when we're doing projects in the South, and then we have somebody in the East. But we kind of have different engineers that we use on projects, but we do all of our cost segs across the country, which is nice. But our office is here in Birmingham.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, we touched on that, and I just don't think most people would know that, especially just cost seg in general. But then you guys operate all over, not just here in Michigan.
Yeah, it's nationwide. Yep.
Yeah, that's huge. Well, I guess on that topic really quick, do you guys, is it anything international, or is it just in the United States?
Just the U.S.
Okay. Okay, so back to green energy really quick, because I'm curious kind of the origin story in that, how you got, like you said, Terry, you've been doing that for a while. How did that because 10, 15 years ago, it was already a thing. People were thinking about things like that, obviously not like they are now, clearly. So what was the origin story of the kind of the green energy and the credits, and just kind of how that's evolved over the years?
So before I started CORE, I was actually a broker when Michigan first deregulated for electricity. And that didn't last long because of all the lobbying going on. And so portions of our state is still deregulated. It's deregulated for gas. Gas is completely wide open. So businesses have a choice in who they use for their supply. And even on the electricity, but the electricity kind of closed down, and it's back that you really can't market electricity, alternative rates in that. So, but we got into that business. And then when I started CORE, it was just a wonderful fit, because we're helping our clients save money. And then the IRS started to promote and came out with one program called 179D back in 2005 under the Energy Policy Act. And that just allowed businesses to, if they went green, they can write off certain components in the first year. So it's kind of like cost segregation, except it's tied to different, it's tied to HVAC, heating and cooling, your mechanical, so let me start over. Building envelope, okay, so doors, roofs, insulation, lighting, so you go LED lighting, and then mechanical, so your heating and cooling. As long as those are energy efficient, you qualify for this 60 cents to $1.80 a square foot that it's another tax incentive, which is very lucrative, okay? So it's another, so if you got a 100,000 square foot building, times, and you qualify for the full $1.80, that's 180 grand in additional tax incentives that we couldn't get in our cost seg reports, because these are different components that are normally in a longer term life. So 39 years, they normally have to stay in. We can't write those off under the cost seg, but we can under this service called 179D.
A lot of people this year, a lot of the clients that we saw were hotels. So a lot of the hotels right now are, because of all of the virus and the things going on, they're like, okay, we need to, completely gut our hotels and change them. So hotels were big, and then schools were big this year as well. So,
we can actually do government buildings in that regard, because the incentive would roll to the designer or builder of, or even the renovator. Someone's coming in, they're going to renovate the building, they can actually qualify. If it's a government building, they would actually get the incentive. So there's a whole process that we do for our clients. Now that is set to expire. Actually, it expired a couple days ago. But wow. We can still go. So if anything from 2006 to basically today, let's say. We can still go back and if all the new construction, all the big rehabs, from apartments to senior living to hotels to office, they can still qualify for 179D. And then there's another one called 45L, and that's really designed for multifamily and senior living, and that is $2,000 a unit, where as long as it's energy efficient. And we go in and we certify the building as green, and then they can get they can get $2,000 a unit, which is very lucrative. Matter of fact, we just did a 557. It was $5,000 newly constructed apartment buildings. We got them over $1 million in tax credits, which is better than depreciation, by the way, because it's dollar for dollar. Yeah. And there's so much that we haven't been able to, there's a lot of that around, and a lot of people are missing out because no one's so we're out there just kind of educating, hey, don't forget about, you've got a new build or a major rehab, let's run an analysis and see what you qualify for. So again, there's layers on top of layers in the tax code. It becomes very kind of confusing on how it all intertwines. And that's why we say, hey, just let us see what you got. Let us look at it, and we'll see what you qualify for at no cost. And then obviously if it,
And that leads me to kind of a two-part question, but going back to, we briefly touched on it before, but again, I think it's really important, which is, kind of some of the recapture, like when to do it. Cause depending on who you hear or talk to, or it's, do everything in the first year. But then we've touched on somewhere someone hasn't done it in 5 years, and they can go back and do it and recapture, things they've lost. So if you could kind of, I guess elaborate on maybe the best time to do it. Like if someone buys, maybe 5 or 10 single families, or, hey, they just bought a 100-unit apartment complex or whatever it is. Does it make sense to do it in the first year, or is it something, is it something that, hey, 5 years down the road, oh, we didn't do it, now we can go back and do it and recapture? How does that work?
Okay, so good question. So we like to say the very best time to do a cost seg study is right when you buy the building, once the building goes into service.
I was going to say now. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously there's probably going to be some rehab and renovations going on. We incorporate that into the project, and that project might be, could be 6 months before it's finished. So we stay engaged. We don't wrap up the study until we get the final change orders. But we like to say, once the building goes into service, or you get a date of occupancy, that technically starts the depreciation schedules. And therefore, that is the very best time to set that building, or put that depreciation on steroids, and making sure that you're maximizing every single dollar out of the gate. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, it's okay if you've missed, and we can go back in time. We do what's called a 481 adjustment, and the IRS will give you a one-time automatic consent to go back without amending returns, and that just blows people's minds. Right. They're like, holy crap, because the reason why maybe their CPA never really brought this to them, or maybe the CPA might think, oh my God, we have to amend all these returns, and that's going to open up a can of worms, and I'm not even going to bring this to my client. But once they find out about this little strategy called the 481 adjustment, which we handle it behind, we basically do all that for the CPA, and it's very cost effective for the owner, and they can take advantage of what we call a look back study. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. No. Yeah, that does, because I feel, it's, you guys work with kind of the gamut of people. I mean, I feel like there's obviously probably more people out there that own, a couple homes or 5 or 10 single families than there are, people out there who own some huge, commercial buildings. So I'm sure a lot of people will listen and be like, oh, that sucks. I have 12 properties and I should have done that a long time ago, so that's why I asked, but thank you for, explaining that further, that it's always out there. It's always something to look after and do. So, what is one thing that you guys, I mean, when someone comes to you, is there anything that people can do to better prepare for you guys, whether it's a CPA or helping their CPA or helping you do what you need to do? Is there something that, makes it your job easier that you wish people knew or wish people could do for you?
I would say the process is super easy because, up front, just to do the analysis, I just need the address of your building, the building type, your purchase date, and then the purchase price or the construction cost. So if it's new construction, the basis, the final total cost that you used, that lets me up front kind of see, does this make sense for you to, to go through with the study? And here's approximately what that, first year cash savings will look like. So we start there. Once we start there, we get on the phone with your CPA with you and kind of go over what those numbers look like. We put together a proposal. And then once we get kicked off, very simple, there's an appraisal, site plan, floor plan, settlement statements, AIA documents. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's not complicated. Really, our engineers do the site visit. Right now is tax season. So, we say it's about 4 to 6 weeks right now after they're visiting the site. Right now, in lieu of site visits, we're also, asking for the clients to give us exterior photos or interior photos. Reports.
With COVID, sometimes we cannot visit the building, but we like to have an engineer. Our engineer, part of the process is to visit the building, go through the whole building, and we can see it. Sometimes these buildings are older. Even though the guy just bought it, it's a 30-year-old building.
Right.
We want to go through the mechanical, the plumbing, the wiring. We want to know, we want to know what's going on the exterior, because there's so much that we want to be able to capture. So, but we have the ability to do virtual tours, virtual inspections, just when we need to, just because of the COVID situation. So we've had to adapt as a firm, as a company, and
Yeah, and I asked that too because I'm sure there are people out there also who are like, wow, like it seems like a lot of work, and like, what am I going to have to do? It's like you mentioned the CPA, it's like, oh, I got to do all this extra work, and that's why I wanted to get you guys on record saying like, this isn't complicated. Like, if we do all this stuff for you, it's not complicated. Let us do our thing and save you a lot of money. So
we have an onboarding process that's very, very easy. Someone we don't ask for, and then once we get the project underway, there may be some, we're going to request the appraisal, if there was an appraisal, any site plans, what are they doing for renovations? Is there blueprints? We want to know the construction costs. So there's a very, we have a very tight process on what we request. But in the beginning, like she said, it's very basic, just purchase price, date, what type of building, property address. We punch it into an estimating software tool. And then that kicks out the benefit analysis. We can turn that around, 24 hours? Yeah.
That's a
yeah. And it's very accurate. It's crazy how we're very conservative on the front end, I will say. But it gives someone in the CPA a great idea whether this makes sense or not up front.
That's awesome.
To do it or not to do it. It has all the to do it or not to do it formulas in there, and they can just see, okay, if we take this depreciation, how is this going to be, how is this going to impact?
And it's super important.
Especially with, now with everybody's been, somewhat impacted, I think, with COVID. So the timing of taking advantage of this, not knowing even where cost segregation or 1031 changes in the future will be. So we're recommending to our clients, like, listen, take advantage. If you've got properties and you're doing things and you're investing, you better be taking advantage of every dollar that's available right now, because we don't know where this is going to be next year or 2 years.
Absolutely.
It could be could be untouched, or it could be completely altered. So just take advantage of what's available to you now.
Yes. Yeah. Well said. Well said. A couple here to wrap up. I know we're get to the 11 o'clock spot, and I want to let you guys get on with your day, but what's, kind of a macro thing here, but, I know you guys are in the tax space, obviously a lot, looking at laws and, all the things that are getting passed just to see how it's affecting, what you guys are doing. But, truly, I mean, how, I'm going to ask you to talk about how important it is what you guys do, but going forward in this, again, we briefly touched on this, but in really it's going to be a higher tax era going forward, regardless of who wins any elections going forward, because of all the currency being printed, all the things happening. It will be higher property taxes, higher income taxes. It's going to be, you name it. Even touching on, I know you guys talk about, or do some property tax stuff. How important is some of that stuff that you guys offer to this environment that everyone's entering? I mean, no one can escape that. And even touching on the property tax. So I think, which will be huge. One of the huge ways I think cities will start bailing themselves out. So.
Well, you nailed it. Taxes are going up. I mean, it is what it is.
Yep.
And I think now more than ever, you need to have a company like Core to come in side by side with you, just like you got your financial planner, your wealth advisor, you've got your CPA, you got your real estate attorney, you got your real estate broker, you got your financial team. And cost segregation, or a company like ours, needs to be part of the spoke in the wheel to make sure that you're getting the full financial picture, so we can come in and look at multiple ways to save you money and to mitigate some of these increased taxes. Because like I said earlier, there's layers and layers and layers of tax incentives, tax credits, property tax mitigation, all that stuff, especially when you buy a property and there's something called uncapping. You bought a property that, let's say, the other owner has owned for 30 years. Well, once you take over, that property tax is going to go, and that can kill the margins of what you thought, and that's killing a lot of deals. So, sometimes we can appeal it and fight it, and we have a process for that that is very successul. And we have the ability to kind of know, hey, this is a good case. Let's fight this. It might take a year. Might take 6 months, might take 2 years. It depends on how far up the ladder we got to go. But we don't charge for that until we win. Okay, so why wouldn't you? Especially if it's something you're buying right now. Energy efficiency. Let's take a look at the building, and we can then help our clients kind of go through the utilities from gas, electric, water. There's tax incentives. There's tax rebates. There's rebates at the local utility. There's ways to reduce those costs, and we have like we talked earlier, we really do have a green energy platform that we can help our clients save money in those areas as well. So there's many ways to kind of maximize cash flow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And then what's one, I guess you have a story, and I know you can't really share details necessarily, but maybe, I don't know if you want to call it a funny story, but like a big win, something where, something that stands out in your guys' mind, of something where it could be some huge player that you helped, or it could be just the guy in the corner that, had some huge win that you helped him with. Is there something that comes to mind where it's just like, hey, this is the kind of story that we tell everyone, and kind of use that as something we do to explain what we do? Is there anything like that you guys have off the top of your head?
I think the biggest, why I have stayed with Core and why I continue to want to, be here forever, I always say, is because it's always a win to me with the person that had no idea what cost seg was or what our firm could provide, and where they go, like when I first started and I asked our engineers, like layman's terms, I'm like, can you just tell me what cost seg is? I had all the details and knew all this stuff, but in the beginning when you're just learning, and I remember the stories, like I went to this, we did a cost seg for a vet clinic in, I don't even know where it was, maybe Arizona or something random. But, and they went into that building and he was about to do his taxes and he owed a lot of money to the IRS. And our cost segregation study, after our engineers went in and scoped out the place and, did our study and just hearing the story of, he was going to owe the money IRS, and then the IRS ended up sending him money back due to our study. That's really what, like, I started flipping in my mind. Like, we are of service to people. We're not selling, like, sunglasses or mugs or this and that. We're really, coming alongside of you and helping put money back into your pocket by the services that we provide. So I always think that I love getting the guy that had no idea what this was, and then him being able to call us and be like, thank you so much. Especially this year, we've had clients call us and say, you've saved us so much money. Or I had the client that had to shut down a bunch of his, he had franchise hairdresser places, but, he had to shut down a bunch of them, but utilized, cost seg on some of his other buildings, and it helps like lessen the blow, I'd like to say. So just being able to come alongside people and really help in that way has been, a big win.
There's so many stories of that, and people that are now, they owe like 300 grand, and then they hire us, and then all of a sudden they're getting a refund check from the IRS, or they don't have to pay any taxes, and there's $100,000 that's going to carry forward, until they can use it up. And they're like, you guys have changed everything in our business. I mean, this has been such a game changer. So it's very impactful. We got tons of these types of stories. So it's, that makes us feel pretty damn good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could tell, again, like I said, I see you guys putting out all kinds of content over the last, number of years, and you can tell that the being an education company, helping people, getting to serve people, you can tell it really, it really emanates from you guys, and you can tell that. Your job at the end of the day is to help people keep their own money. Like IRS is going to give you back your money. And they're never going to say, oh yeah, here we go. So it's up to people like you to help people do that, and you can tell that you guys really get a kick out of it and enjoy what you do. So appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, because it's huge. It's because like you said, Diane. Not every business has I like to look at myself as a social capitalist, where your business serves a purpose, right? You're serving people, you're serving a purpose. And so many businesses serve themselves, individuals serving themselves, whatever it might be. But I think that goal, if you can be a social capitalist and you got the best of both worlds, being a free market person, but also serving humanity, that's the best of both worlds. So that's what you guys epitomize that. So it's very cool. Last real thing, I guess, two really small things. Cost, how that kind of works. And again, I know it's kind of case by case, but how do you determine cost? And I know you guys said a couple of times you have the free assessment, you come, let people, talk to them and kind of see how that works. So how does that kind of play out, I guess?
So cost is it's per project. It's the time involved, it's where it's located. It also matters what kind of building it is. So some buildings are easier for us to get in and get out and do our thing. Some, when you get in office, there's a lot of tenants.
Sorry, we went away.
No, you're good. You're good.
Close up.
For a couple seconds. No, we got it.
Hopefully you heard everything I just said. So it's, again, it's based on the project size, how many buildings. Yep. I will say, fees are very reasonable. Sometimes people are shocked at kind of what they get versus what it costs. So don't let any of that stuff keep you away. You'll be kind of pleasantly surprised. I think on the ROI, you're not, this is probably one of the better investments you could ever make.
Yep. And I think and you guys, and that's what I wanted you to say as well. I wanted you to kind of touch on kind of the ROI of it. Cause again, everyone kind of gets caught up in like, well, I'm paying this and I don't have anything in my hand yet. So it doesn't, but it's truly that ROI. And then going, seconding that, where is you guys come in and do the free assessment and talk to the business owner or whatever it might be, and kind of, hey, does this make sense or does it not make sense? You're not going to let someone go all the way down the road and be like, hey, yeah, we didn't, nothing happened, and here's our fee. You guys are doing that up front and kind of positioning people correctly. And if it doesn't make sense, you're like, hey, it doesn't make sense. We're not, let's go our separate ways, and the next time maybe it will, right? So I think that's huge.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yep. Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys doing this. What's the best way for people to find you guys? Whether maybe it's on social or email, or what's the best way for them to contact you and reach out to you?
I mean, lately it's been on my cell phone, but really it's like through our website channels, on our social media. We have the LinkedIn and the Facebook, and I can give you that information for you to post as well. But we're always available, at least within that same 24 hours to get back in touch with you, and, and an email as well. So I think, the Gipe at coreadvisors.net.